Welcome back, everyone. I know it's been a while, but here's the fifth part to my Reliant build. Now, in this build, the first part will make you cry, but the last part will make you smile. At least, that's what it did for me. But anyway, without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so where I left off in the last video was the saucer, well, the main body, was ready to be painted. I sanded it down to 600 grit, and here you'll see I just masked off some of the Raytheon lighting effect, because I want to have a different effect. I don't want to have like a hard stop line of where the light is. I want to have a sort of gradual fade effect. This didn't quite work out in the end, but it was a worthy try, I guess. Anyway, I finally whacked it with some white primer, and I sanded it down to about 800 at this point, and everything was going great. But I decided to do a light test, and, well, fuck. Half the lights in the saucer were not working. Look at that. You see that those lights in the corner there? Yeah, the lights are working fine over there on the right, but on the left side, shit. Look at that. They're fucking out. And these lights are in parallel, right? So I'm like, okay, if that little section's out, it won't matter so much because, well, the rest of the stuff should still be working. But then I look along the whole edge of the saucer, and half of the saucer was gone. I'm like, oh man, what's happening? They're in parallel. This shouldn't happen. And then I look underneath. Fuck, the lights underneath are out too. Son of a bitch. So this shouldn't happen. I mean, everything's in parallel, but a whole chain went out. The only way that could happen would be if, well, a connection rattled loose. Because, you know, I'm a fucking moron and I can't solder for shit. So, how do I find out where it is, right? I mean, I can cut into the model and resolder it, but I don't want to cut blindly into it and have to, you know, start from scratch, essentially. But, I've been taking pictures this whole fucking time. Good thing. So here's a nice wiring diagram of the saucer just before I sealed it up. And I circled two little parts on the top there. You can see them in red. Those are the two possible connections that could have came loose. So I have two spots to cut. Hopefully I'll get the first. I'll get it on the first try. If not, well, I'll get it on the second try. That's for sure. So yeah, let's get to it. Man, this really pissed me off. Fuck, I was swearing so much, more than you normally hear me swear. So I drew some rough guidelines in pencil over where I should cut. Here it is on the left side, and here it is on the right side. Now, right before I cut in here, I was pretty fucking nervous, because I didn't want to cut a wire and make it worse. I didn't want to cut into an LED strip and make it even more fucking worse. But I managed to cut through, and I looked inside, and, well, door number 1, no success. Damn it. Everything looks fine, so the problem must be somewhere else. Look in door number 2. Aha! I fucking knew it. Look at that. I fucking knew it. It is loose. Look at that shit. It's loose. Alright, so I resoldered it. I resoldered both leads just to make sure, and everything worked again. I did a little light test, and yes, it worked. The lights work again, but now I have these two gaping holes in my model, but who cares? The lights fucking work. Woohoo! So what to do about these holes? Well, I glued some pieces of styrene underneath as a form of support because, well, when I cut the hole, the piece that I removed is now smaller than the hole, right? Because the cutting disc removes material. So I used those pieces of styrene and I glued the piece roughly into position where it should be. I lined up the panel line with it. That's why I cut where there was a panel line, so I could actually line this thing properly. Did a little test. Yeah, the lights are still working. Glued in fine. I do it to both eventually. But then I gotta fill in these giant gaps. And I didn't want to use resin, or epoxy resin, because I didn't want to risk getting it all over the surface of the model. I could use tape to block it. Hindsight's 20/20, right? But I used the white putty, right? The Squadron white putty as opposed to the red Bondo putty, because the red Bondo putty cracks easy and the styrene inside is a little flexible, but the white Squadron putty is hard, right? So I put that on there, let it dry completely. I waited a couple hours for that, sanded it smooth, put a little blast of primer, need a little bit more, so I added a little bit more putty, more sanding, more primer, and you can barely see it now. perfect. And at the end, I did a little light test, removed all the masks to see all the spotlights in their glory, and they all work, and it's beautiful. Look at that. I love it. So before I get to the fun task of Aztec painting, I gotta detail paint this. Right now it's one big white block. And that's not what the Reliant looks like. The Enterprise doesn't look like that either. Gotta add the blues, the coppers, the Euro grays, and the other grays. These are all the paints I'm gonna be using, right? So the first thing I did, I was going to do my blue-gray shade over around the bridge and those little white squares in the back, and oh, there they are, nice and beautiful. Next spot was the darker blue for the hangar bay, well the shuttle bay, doors, and there's little inserts on top of the saucer. You'll notice I use bags or newspapers or papers to block things, because overspray is something I cannot stand. I hate overspray so much because it just ruins your model in the end. I mean, this is a little easier. I mean, I could just sand it off because, you know, it's just sanded white primer, the base coat, right? So that's useful. But I didn't want to put masking tape all over the fucking place. That's just wasteful. So I use anything else I can find. Bags, paper towels, papers, newspapers, and it saves a lot of tape, a lot of time, because you can do a bigger surface when you have, you know, like a big piece of thick paper towel. Now, I don't use normal paper towel. I use those blue shop towels because they're thicker. They're, I guess, cleaner is another way you can say, because they don't leave little white pieces of shit that normal paper towels leave when you wipe things down. Anyway, I'm ranting. Let's move on. Next up were the light grays. And the light grays are for the shuttle bay trenches and also the little detail underneath the ship. And that came out nice. But I had that photoetch set that I've been itching to put on to the impulse domes, right? Those little blue domes underneath. Well, I finally managed to put one on, and I was so excited because I had these photoetch things from the beginning, and I couldn't put it on until I was at this stage. It took me forever, but I managed to fucking get it. Looks great. Time to deal with those big bright LEDs I use for my impulse engines. Now the kit comes with two clear red pieces, at least the old kit does. I'm not sure if the new one comes in red. They'll definitely come in clear. But anyway, I sanded them to diffuse the light. I was test fitting them. They worked well. But while I was testing them, I lost one. Now, it's not like I just dropped it on the floor, I could pick it up, or it's under some crap. If I sweep, I'll find it. No. My floor, at least where I'm doing this, is plywood, and, well, it fell in the crack. Yep, that little piece fell in the crack. I tried getting out with tweezers, and I just ended up pushing it under the plywood. I'm not ripping up my fucking floor to get to that piece, so I had to make an alternative. I cut some styrene, right? I cut some styrene in the same shape as the piece, and I put it into place in front of the lights, and it diffused it enough for me, actually. It looks pretty good. So I did it on both sides, and I used the photoetch grill that the Paragraphics kit came with. Spray painted Euro Gray 1, and I glued it right on top, and it looks really, really cool. The camera, however, makes a little blurry when the lights are on. You can't quite see the lines, but in person, they're pretty clear, and it looks really good. So as I was detail painting this, I noticed I have a little light leak where the engines are. Nah, don't worry, I'll fix it. But I didn't take a picture of it fixed because I guess I'm not dumb. Anyway, time to move on. The Nacelle insert grills. Those were a bitch to do. Holy crap, those were so freaking hard to do. I should have done that while the nacelles were not attached. Lesson learned, next time that's what I'm going to do, especially on the Reliant. Holy crap. Anyway, next up were the light blue details on the tail fin, the front of the nacelle, and the upper impulse dome. Masked it all, used paper towel on areas I couldn't reach with tape. I didn't want to waste all that tape. Painted it all, and it came up pretty cool, actually. Just a few little touch-ups here and there to do, but it looks pretty good to me anyway. But, as you might have heard, I painted the top dome, which means I could add that other Paragraphics photo etch on top of that dome, and it looks really, really cool. I love it. So, one more light test before I move on to more detail painting, just to make sure, you know, none of the other lights went out on me. Yeah, I'm a little paranoid at this point, but anyway, time to move on. Next up were the little copper Bassard collectors on the nacelles. Those came out pretty well. A little touch-ups necessary. The camera doesn't quite pick it up very well, but yeah, the lines are a little jagged for me. I'll fix that later on. But that means we're done with the detail painting. We can actually move on to the Aztecing. Woohoo! Alright, so to make things easier, I decided to start with the bottom part of the saucer. I didn't want to do the top because when I do the bottom, it'll be resting on the top. I didn't want to risk scuffing it or whatever, so bottom first. I want to do the inner part of the saucer, so I laid masking tape and I scribed along the panel line and I cut with my knife to remove the excess tape to make that nice circular pattern. Then I added strips of tape radially along the center, well, around the center, and I also blocked off the rest with paper, save tape, spray painted with pearl blue, which makes it look kind of gold when you're not looking at it right. Then I cut out a little template in frisket paper, little trapezoids, and I used transparent red for that part, and the effect looks pretty cool in my mind. Yeah, this isn't the Reliant, this is more the refit. I want to paint it kind of like the refit because, well, I'm practicing for the refit. Anyway, removed all the tape, nice little shot, looks cool. Next was the outer rim of the saucer. Same story. I masked the inside with paper and tape. I painted it blue, gold, red, and green. Little spots here and there of each. And the effect came pretty well, actually. Look at that. The camera doesn't quite pick it up very well, but they're there. Trust me. Blue, gold, green, and red. Looks great. Mostly blue, though. So, finally, we're at the Aztec part of the lower saucer. Mask the outside of the saucer, mask the inside of the saucer. Everything looks cool. Let's get started. So I used the orbital dry dock masks for this, right? Like I did on the roll bar. Now, on the B part of the Aztec style, it sort of overlaps on the next panel. So I can only do two at once, at least on this shot. So that kind of bugged me, but it gave me a bit of practice. Anyway, so this is what it looks like before, this is what it looks like after. It looks kind of goldish because I used blue, but when I move the light, the blues are popping. Looks great. But I also added little panels in there of gold, red, and green. I'll be doing some of that on the, I guess the white part of the Aztec later on when everything is done. And the effect will look really cool. Anyway, here's a video of me trying to capture the pearl effect. Doesn't quite work out in the end, but the camera taking pictures works pretty well, so we'll leave it at that. So that's all I did for now. I guess I'll see you guys in part 6, which I hope the model will be complete by then, because, well, I need at least, like, a couple dozen photos to actually make a fucking video. So yeah, that's it. Join me next time to watch me make this pile of crap of a model into the lovely Reliant. Thanks for watching.